So when you hear the term monopoly, you're probably thinking about that ultra popular board game that you play with your friends. However, a monopoly in economics is something much different and much bigger. Let's break down exactly what a monopoly is and how it forms and why it matters, so you can come back to class prepared and ready for your next test.
A monopoly happens when one company controls the entire market for a product. Think of it like one internet provider in your area. You have no choice but to use them, so they can charge whatever price they want. This is because monopolies have market power. That means they can control prices and limit consumer choice.
Next, let's go over how monopolies form. So, basically, monopolies form when one company either buys out its competitors, controls a key resource, or has government granted exclusive rights, like a patent.
Now, a big reason monopolies stay in control is because they have barriers to entry. These are things that stop new competitors from entering the market.
Now, we already mentioned that monopolies can form when one company buys out its competitors, but they can also form due to natural circumstances and events. This is what we call a natural monopoly. Now, let's get into the important stuff. Let's take a look at the graph. Here, we have four important elements. The first element is the demand curve, which, as we already know, it shows a relationship between the price of a product and the quantity demanded by consumers. Below that, we have the marginal revenue curve, which represents the additional revenue the firm earns from selling one more unit. Next, we have the marginal cost curve, which shows the cost of producing one more unit of the good. It typically slopes upward because as production increases, additional units cost more to produce. Lastly, we have our average total cost curve, which, as we know, shows the average cost per unit produced. It is U-shaped, and that means that the costs decrease at first with more production, but rise as output grows further, which we know as economies of scale.
Now, let's look a little deeper into this graph. This area between the demand curve and the ATC curve is going to be your economic profit. And this triangle here represents your deadweight loss, which is caused due to market inefficiency when supply and demand are out of equilibrium.
Wait, easy econ. I get how the monopoly graph works, but how do I find the market quantity and market price?
Well, it's funny you ask. The price and quantity in the market are both determined based on this intersection right here between MC and MR. That'll tell you your quantity, and to find your price, just go up to the demand curve. Let's go back to the natural monopoly, because the graph for this one's a little different. The key difference you have to remember is that the ATC curve slopes downward over a large range of output in a natural monopoly. The second key difference you have to remember is MC is below the ATC curve. Since ATC is falling, MC always must be below the ATC curve.
So just to wrap this video up, let's go over a few of the key concepts that you have to remember. First of all, you want to focus on the key characteristics of a monopoly. Second, you want to focus on how monopolies are formed and some real-life examples of monopolies that you can remember just to kind of conceptualize the idea. Lastly, you want to think about the difference between the monopoly and the natural monopoly graph and remember the key components to each one of these graphs.